Hey everybody, it's Hayden Greene. It is 5 o'clock on a Saturday. I am gonna just drop this in here so that we can set it and forget it, as they say on the on those commercials for what is that, cooker, rotisserie, something or the other. So I'm gonna put this in here so we can talk about what we need to talk about and get her done. I hope everybody is doing well, and they were able to survive the monsoon that we had in New York City. If you are in New York City with me, we had Faye, I believe is the name of the storm, come through. All right, is that right, Hayden M. Greene? Yes, so we're all set to go. Name's Hayden Greene, and you are here with photography with Hayden, and we already got a couple people jumping in. We got Danny and Linda, Lydia. Okay. Oh, that's my friend Lydia. What's up? And so our regular crew is here with us, and today we are going to talk about something that is a little bit tricky even for the best photographers, and that has to do with white balance and color temperatures. Okay. Once again, my name is Hayden Greene. I am a photographer, a self-taught photographer, and if I can teach myself, I can teach you, and then you can go off and learn more stuff on your own and be far better than I ever am. All right. So today we're gonna go through the basics of color photography and tonality when it comes to photography. And you'll hear some things that photographers talk about very, very candidly, like, oh, it was a cool color, or a warm color, or a warm tone, or something along those lines. And if you're a new photographer, you probably don't know what they're talking about. And you're like, I don't get it. All right. Or there are blues, or there were yellows in this tone. And so what I want to do in this particular session is begin to demystify what those terms mean. And this is not going to be an extensive color tone workshop by any means at all, because you could spend hours talking about this stuff and understanding the tonality of a picture, and how to make it warm and how to make it cool, and what pictures are warm and what pictures are not. But I want to give you some definitions. I want to get you started. So the first thing that we always do is show you where this is on your camera. All right. So again, this is my 5D, and every camera is different, but you can find all of these things on your camera. On phones, it is more than likely a preset setting, but I will show it to you on my camera. So on a Canon, right up here, it says white balance, WB. Right? Is that in focus? There we go. It says WB, white balance. Right? So when you press that button, it gives you a number, it gives you a menu over here. Right? My camera on? Yes, it is. There we go. So when you press the button, it gives you a menu right up in here. And if you turn the dial on time, I should say. If you turn the dial, you see that it moves through different settings, right? Most people leave it on AWB, which stands for automatic white balance. All right. So what is a white balance? When you take a picture, the camera looks at it and says, what temperature is the scene? And it then determines, okay, I'm going to represent these colors on these pixels in this way. I just use a bunch of terms that if you are new to photography, you're probably like, what does that mean? I'm going to get there. All right. So automatic white balance says, I'm going to look at this scene and see whether it is warm, whether it is cool, and I'm going to adjust accordingly and add the correct white balance, right? So what the term white balance comes from is when you look at your picture back in the computer, or you develop it, even if you were doing development, when you look at your picture, are the whites, when you show them back up, are the whites actually white? That's all that means. So white balance means when you look at a picture, are the whites showing up as yellows? Are they showing up a little bit as reds? Are they showing up with a little magenta tone to them? And so what the white balance says, or what the concept of a white balance is, if I correct for the white, right? If I make sure that the whites in the picture that I took, show up exactly as white, as the same white as the scene that I'm taking a picture of, then every other color will fall into line. All right? Let me say that again. If I correct for the whites, right? If I make sure that the whites that I'm seeing in the scene that I'm taking a picture of match the color, the whites on the picture that I've actually taken, if I make those two match, every other color will match up. What does it say? So when you get red eye, does that mean your white balance is off? That's a whole other story. Red eye is actually what happens when you have a flash, and the flash is bouncing off the back of the retina in your eye and coming and showing up on your picture. It actually has nothing to do with white balance, believe it or not. Red eye is a mirror issue, right? Which is why people try to correct for it. And so when you see programs that you can click on and eliminate the red eye, that's not white balancing. That's actually the computer picking up that this should be black, right? And it's showing up as red. So it corrects for that. Now, if you took a picture and the person's eye is very what do you call that part of the eye? The white part of the eye is, the cornea is very white, and it shows up in your picture as yellow, or shows up in your picture as red. If you click on your white balance and correct for that white balance, the skin tone may show up differently. So if the eyes are red, then your skin tone is probably too red as well. So if you could color correct for the white in the person's eye, the skin tone may actually get to a place where it's proper. We use white balance in the OR for laparoscopic surgeries. Otherwise, the insides don't look right. Exactly. So if you're looking for a vein that's supposed to be blue and it's purple, and you're like, well, if it's purple, something's wrong with it, maybe we should remove it. You want to white balance and correct that so that you're seeing all the colors correctly. And I'm guessing that's pretty much the same thing. All right, so that's what the white balance does. So you're trying to balance out the colors in your picture. What you want is, you want to know that what you're seeing with your eyes is recreated on the picture that you're taking. And that's going to be the basis for the color corrections that you're looking at. And so when we start to talk about colors, all pictures have a tonality to it. All pictures have a tonality to it. So the other piece of it is sometimes we want to add a tonality that is different than what we're seeing. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that. And I'm using my book, Gradient. This is the second book. No, this is the first book. Oh, I can't mixing the books up. This is the first book. So here is a picture that was taken on a bright sunny day in Atlantic City. Okay? And this picture is a cool picture. And it's supposed to be a warm picture. I'm going to tell you what all that means in a few minutes, right? This is a cool picture where it's supposed to be a warm picture. So I've taken a cool picture and turned it into a warm picture. Here's a picture that I've completely turned into a cool picture. And it has blue overtones and blue tonal contrast, right? This is a warm picture. There are more yellows, there are more oranges. And here is a warm sky and a cool shore, right? So a warm sky and a cool shore. And so what am I talking about when I say all of those terms, right? And so the best way to show that to you is to show you a color wheel. And so most people have seen a color wheel before, so I'll show you one again. So this is a color wheel, right? As you see from the color wheel, and it says right here that these are your primary yellows, these are your primary reds, and these are your primary blues, okay? Every color that you see is some sort of a combination of all of these. And the white in the center is the lack of any color. And black is, when it comes to light, black is all colors combined. Black is all colors combined. And white is devoid of any color. All right? So if you are looking at a picture, if you have colors that are more on this side of the color wheel, so we're going from the purples all the way down to the greens, that picture is generally described as a cool color. These are the cool colors on the blue side of the range, right? If you come from the red and come all the way around to the yellows, these are the warm colors. So if the majority of the colors in your picture fall on this side of the spectrum, that's a warm picture. Right now, as you're viewing me, I'm warm, right? So I have a lot of oranges, my skin tone is orange, and if I could show you the light that I'm using, my light has a warm diffuser. You don't need to know what that is. Just know that I'm projecting a warm light on myself so that I look better. I need all the help I could get. Trust me on this one. All right. So this is the warm colors over on here. Now your cold colors are more blues. It gives you a feeling like ice. Think ice, right? So if you got stuff that has blues in it, or like not magenta, sorry, aquas and sea greens and stuff like that, and even all the way up to your purples, these are considered cool colors, right? And not cool as in, you know, he's not cool or she's not cool. Yes, I knew somebody was going to pick up on the fact I need all the help I could get. But that's what they're talking about when skin is, tone is, house is devoid, all colors in DC. Okay. All right, so we're not going to get political with this, but anyway, so I have more yellows and oranges and stuff like that in my skin color naturally, and browns, right? And brown is just simply a combination of reds and oranges. And so when I look at the colors, when I look at the color spectrum, I can tell what colors are prominent in my picture. And I know I have a warmth. So think sunsets, right? So if you have a sunset that's got oranges and bright reds, that's a very warm picture. So if we come back to this picture over here, this is a sunset and it's got all of these oranges and stuff like that. But if you notice, the clouds are very blue, right? The clouds are very blue. Now the clouds were gray when I took this picture, right? The clouds were gray when I took this picture. But I knew that when I processed it, that a warm up against a cool color, a warm color against a cool color is going to give me a particular type of picture. It's going to give me a different kind of a look. So I edited it so that I had those two sitting up against each other, right? And so that's a technique again, understanding how cold and warm colors interplay. So if you've ever played with a color wheel, you know that if you have if you have one color, if you go right across the color wheel, the color that's on the other side is its complement, right? And so you see this in fashion. So they'll tell you that if you have, like say for instance, if you have a primary yellow, something that's primary yellow, if you want to come all the way across here, you might want to accent that with something that's purple or magenta, because it's a complementary color. Colors that are on either side of each other are complementary colors, which means they are, they work well against each other. You give you a good contrast, right? The colors that are next to each other are the ones that are going to blend in with each other if they're next to each other. So again, if we come back to this picture, we've got the warm sky and the cool clouds. And what I wanted to do was to show that contrast. And when you see it, the sky jumps out at you because there's a definitive contrast between the clouds and the sky. And so so those are the two terms that you see used: cool and warm. And what it's talking about is on the color wheel. I'll show you another example of how to look at it and how your camera looks at it. So this is what is called a Kelvin scale. Get this in the camera right here. So this is what is called a Kelvin scale. So when you get to the advanced level, there are settings on your camera. Actually, I'll tell you about the settings and then we'll come back to the Kelvin. So there are settings on your camera, and most point and shoots have them. And I know definitely your camera phone actually has it as well. So when you get to the settings, there are settings for different types of skies, different types of settings. So I'll turn my camera on now, and I'm going to run through the settings. I don't know if you guys can see them. The settings are up here, right here. And so you have a setting for bright sky, which has a lot of yellows in it. Then you have a setting for, I need my glasses. Then you have a setting for indoors, which most of the time has, not fluorescent, but, oh my God, I can't remember the name of the pictures, the bulbs. Iridescent bulbs. Woo, that one almost left me. All right. Then you have another setting for a cloudy day. And if it's a cloudy day, that means that the settings are pretty cool, right? And then you have a setting for, right, if you have direct iridescent light, then you have another setting for fluorescent light, like if you're taking pictures in a gym. And I have fluorescent light in here, which is why I have warming lights, because fluorescent lights makes you very cool. And on humans, it makes them feel very pale, right? And then you have one if you're using flash. Now, flash has a very bright light, right? And it's a bright, almost like a lightning strike. And it is very white, very, very, very blue, right? So if you're using flash and you want to correct for that, you may set it to that setting over there, right? The next one, I forget what that one is, and we'll come back to it. And then you have a simple K, right? And K stands for Kelvin, okay? So for those of you who are science buffs, you remember that there are 3 different types of temperature scales. There is Fahrenheit, there is Celsius, and there is Kelvin, all right? So 3 different types: Fahrenheit, Celsius, Kelvin, right? And so Fahrenheit and Celsius are ones that you generally see and use, especially with temperature and stuff like that. So everybody knows that 212 is what water boils, and that's 100 Celsius. 212 Fahrenheit is what water boils at, and that's 100 Celsius. And then you have, people know that 0 degrees is when water freezes, and that's a cold day on certain things, in certain parts of the country. Or cold day, sorry. 32 degrees is cold in certain parts of the countries. So those are things that you're accustomed to when it comes to weather. But when it comes to science, there is another scale called the Kelvin scale. And Kelvin goes from 0, which is called absolute 0. There is nothing lower than that. You can't get any colder than that, all the way up to what the temperature of the sun is, right? And so you'll never see, or you may see some people, but most of the times when you see people talking about the temperature of the sun, most of the times you hear them talk about it is such and such amount of Kelvin, right? And so what we are looking at, and this scale is actually wrong. Yeah, this scale should be should be the other way around. All right, so when you look at the K on the camera, you'll start to see numbers that go up and down. And so what that is saying to the camera is like, I'm going to set what temperature I want you to take this picture at. All right, and so all of the other ones that I just showed you, if I put it at a sunny day, if I put it on the sunny day setting, and I go out and it's cloudy, what it says is that this day is very warm. It's very, very warm. So I'm going to cool it down a little bit so that the color correction it's appropriate for what you're looking at. Because if you take the picture, normally what's going to happen is that the whites are going to be very yellow, and almost to the point of orange, and that means everything else is going to be too warm. So if you set it for a sunny day, it says there's a lot of warmth out here. I'm going to tone it down so that it comes back to the middle. So if you take that camera out on the sunny setting and it's actually cool outside and it's overcast and there are a lot of cool temperatures, it's going to cool it down even more. So you don't want that. You want to put it on a cool setting so that it warms it back up, right? And so if you take your camera out and it's a cool day and it's overcast and you set it to the overcast setting, it's going to warm that picture up so that there are not as many blues and as many cool temperature tones in the picture. So it's going to get it back to center. What the camera is trying to do is get your tones back to center so that it properly represents what the colors are supposed to look like. Now, if you set it to Kelvin, you can set where you want that color to be, right? And depending on the color scale, you can say, oh, okay, I want it to always be this warm, or I want it to always be this cool. No matter what the scene looks like, this is where I want it to be. Why would somebody do that? Well, for instance, if you're shooting in a gym, and if you ever taken pictures in a gym, most gyms, except for some of the new ones, but like most gyms have, like we're talking about high school and college gyms, have these really, really awful yellow lights, right? And so you get your pictures back and they are all yellow. Everybody looks sickly. Everybody looks, it's really, really bad. And no matter what you set it to, in automatic white balance, there is no color. It doesn't color correct properly for you. So you have two choices, right? You can take what is known as your baseline, right? So some people have like what's called a gray card, and they'll set it up and you take a picture of that gray card. And when you go back into editing your pictures, you go to the picture that has the gray card and you white balance based on the gray card that you have. So the gray card may be 15% gray, 20% gray, whatever it is. You click on that gray card and the computer will adjust all of the other colors based on that gray card, right? You can do it that way, but that means you now have to set that color setting throughout every picture that you took. And if you're a sports photographer and you've taken 1,000 pictures that day, it means you have to color correct 1,000 pictures. The other thing that you can do is try to find where the proper tonality and the proper color temperature on your on the camera is supposed to be, and set it on the Kelvin. Right? So move it to Kelvin and set the actual tonality. So you take a picture, this is too warm, you lower it on the Kelvin, and then it's set. The camera will not adjust it. The camera will say, this is the tone, this is the color balance that you want from this point on. And you can take every single picture, and all of those pictures then will be the proper setting. It works because the lighting in the gym doesn't change, right? It's always going to be the exact same ugly lights for the entire duration of the game. Now, when you go back outside, you might have to make those changes again. But while you're inside, you have it set so that you know that at the very least, the color balance is set. The color balance does not move, and you can deal with all the other things. So you can change your lighting, you can make all the other things work for you. But at the very least, you know that the color balance is set, right? And so that's one of the benefits of having the Kelvin, so that the camera isn't trying to figure out whether this is a cool picture or a warm picture or anything like that. So That's the basis of color balance. Again, the main thing that you are trying to do is make sure that the colors and their tones match the colors and the tones in your picture match what you saw in the scene that you are trying to take. And this is very important because people's faces, you want to always have a warm tone. You don't want them to be over warm because then they start looking like somebody described earlier on in earlier on in the broadcast. I'm trying hard not to be political in this one. My political broadcast is on Thursdays. You can tune into that, right? But also you want to make sure that it matches, your tone matches the feeling that you're trying to have, right? So warm tones give a sense of basically that. They're warm, they're inviting, right? A cool tone makes you stop and pay attention to all the individual things, right? A warm tone is a more empathic and more feelingful picture. So here's a picture that is taken in grass, right, and outdoors, and there are no warm tones in this at all. There's greens in here, but even the greens are warmed up to have a lot of yellow in it. And this is an effort to really match the warmth of the models here, and the sky is completely blanked out, right? So I've completely blown out the sky, so you're not focused on this, on the trees, on anything. All you are focusing on is the warmth of this woman's hair, and the grass and everything around it is complementary to that. So we talked about we talked about colors that are on one end of the spectrum and on the other end of the spectrum. All of the colors in this are all next to each other on the spectrum. There are no colors on the other end of the spectrum, and that's by design, right? And that's different, and it has a different feel than this one, right? So this was a very warm day. This is Coney Island. And if you've ever been to Coney Island is full of sea, and everything is sun drenched, and there are a lot of yellows and golds, and the sky. And this was during the Mermaid Parade, so this was a really warm sunny day. And my choice was to take all of that out, right? I didn't want you to feel warm about this. I want you to pay attention to the individuals, right? I want you to make sure that you saw what was going on in the scene and not had this warm and fuzzy feeling behind the picture. It was intentionally done that way. And that's what you can do with your pictures. That's what you can do with color cast and trying to make it more warm or less warm. And it depends on what color, what picture you're looking at, what photo editor that you're looking at will allow you to make it more warm or less warm, or cool or less cool, and things along those lines. But you have to understand what scene you're looking at first and foremost. If you're looking at a scene that's very cool, if you're looking at a scene that's very warm, and those are the tools, right? So think about your color wheel. Think about Kelvin and your Kelvin scale if you want to lock your camera in, because you want to make sure that you got this particular temperature registering in the camera. And last but not least, why is this all important? So the camera will automatically, if you put it on automatic white balance, it'll do the best job that it can. But like I said, it's important to understand what's going on with this, because if the camera is doing all the work and then the camera gets it wrong, when you get back to the point of editing, all your pictures are going to look wrong, right? And so you may have a picture that is way too orange, way too orange. And you have to now try to figure out how to get it back to what you saw. First of all, you have to remember what you saw. What was that person's skin tone? What was the color of that flower? What was the color of that building, that seascape? You have to remember what it was. And so if you're having to fight through all of those memories and fight the camera every single picture that you're taking, it's going to be a longer editing process than if you analyze your scene, make sure that the camera is doing what it's supposed to do, knowing the color wheel, knowing warmth, and knowing all the rest of that stuff, knowing how you wanted to process this and get it done in the proper way. that's going to help you in the end with your editing piece, right? And so you always want to know what the camera is doing and what the equipment is doing, whether it's your phone or, you know, your professional camera. You always want to know what the camera is doing and be able to adjust to make sure you're getting what you need to get. And then after you've done that, then you can get to the point where you're starting to play with things. Again, the common rule is learn the rule so that you know how to break the rule, right? So if you don't know what rule you're breaking and how you're breaking it, then you can't break it effectively. And so that's where we stand, and that's what all of this color balance and all the rest of that stuff is about. And hopefully this was helpful for you. And again, as I always say, if you got a tip, leave a tip. You'll see my Cash App is pinned right up there, and I really appreciate the company. Last but not least, as always, the deal still stands. The Cash App is there. If you send me $5, I will send you a print. I have a bunch of prints that we have had from over the years, and I want to just send them out to people. So if you send me $5, I'll send you a print. You display that print, or you show that you've gotten that print and put it on social media, you'll get 15% off any purchase on my website of any bigger piece or something else that you actually want. The prints are good. I'm not going to send you, a picture of a dog's butt. I do have a picture of a dog's butt accidentally. It's weird, right? But I want to make sure that the stuff that's sitting around here goes to somebody's home. It makes sense, right? So send me $5. I'll send you a print. You can do whatever you want with it. You can make it into a mouse a mouse pad, or you can hang it in your bathroom, or if you really like it, you can frame it and put it somewhere where you can see it on a regular basis. But I want them in your home instead of my home. All right. So this has been Hayden. It's been fun. If you got any tips out of this, let me know. If you have more questions, let me know. You can send me a DM. All of this stuff, all of these stuff will be on my YouTube channel. Just Google Hayden M. Greene and it should come out. Actually, if you Google just Hayden Greene, there's a strange guy that plays football, soccer, sorry, I'm from the Caribbean, that plays football, and he has a bunch of shirtless pictures. He is not me. Trust me, you do not want shirtless pictures of me. And this is where Nelly is gonna chime in and say, no, we don't. Anyway, it was great hanging out with you guys. I will see you next week at 5 o'clock. See you later.